Most men don't realize how much power they're giving away until it's already gone. They think relationships fall apart because of bad luck, timing, personality mismatches, or because women are complicated. But that's not what actually happens. What happens is much simpler and far more uncomfortable. Men walk into relationships without understanding the rules they're being judged by, and they keep playing as if effort, sincerity, and loyalty automatically translate into respect. They don't. Not on their own. Once a man understands this, truly understands it, not as an idea, but as something that changes how he behaves, the entire dynamic between men and women shifts. And when that shift happens, the old leverage disappears. The emotional pressure stops working. The manipulation loses its effect. Not because women are defeated, but because the man is no longer operating blindly. Here's the thing most men are never told. Women don't respond to what you intend. They respond to what your behavior communicates about your self-worth. You can have the best intentions in the world, be loyal, generous, emotionally open, and genuinely caring, and still quietly lose respect because your actions signal that you're afraid to lose her. Fear, even when it's well hidden, always leaks into behavior. Most men are taught that when a relationship feels unstable, the solution is to lean in harder, communicate more, explain yourself better, show more affection, be more understanding. What they don't realize is that this instinct, while logical on paper, often produces the opposite result. It doesn't restore attraction, it exposes insecurity. When a woman pulls back slightly and a man immediately reacts by chasing clarity, over-communicating, or trying to fix the emotional temperature, he's unknowingly placing her in the dominant position. He's signaling that her mood controls his sense of stability. From that moment on, the dynamic changes, even if neither of them consciously acknowledges it. This is where most men get confused, because they think they're being mature. They think they're being emotionally intelligent. In reality, they're removing all pressure from her to invest. They're showing that no matter how she behaves, they'll stay centered around her. That doesn't create safety. It creates imbalance. Here's what men don't understand until it's too late. Attraction doesn't grow from reassurance. It grows from steadiness. From a man who doesn't emotionally wobble every time the energy shifts, from someone whose behavior remains consistent, whether things are smooth or uncertain. That kind of emotional grounding communicates something far more powerful than words ever could. Women test this constantly, and not in the cartoonish way people like to describe online. It's not some conscious scheme, it's instinctive, a delay in response, a shift in tone, a little distance. She's watching to see what happens next. Does he stay grounded, or does he start adjusting himself to regain approval? Most men fail here without even realizing it was a test. They respond faster, they try harder, they soften their boundaries, they become more agreeable, and each time they do this, attraction erodes a little more. Not because they're bad men, but because they've signaled that they're operating from fear of loss rather than confidence in self. Once a man understands that his emotional stability must not depend on a woman's behavior, everything changes. He stops treating uncertainty like an emergency. He stops reading into every shift. He stops trying to manage her emotions for her. Instead, he observes. He notices patterns. He lets people reveal themselves without rushing to intervene. This is where the power flip happens. When a man doesn't react the way a woman expects, when silence doesn't panic him, when distance doesn't cause him to scramble for reassurance, the usual tactics stop producing results. The leverage disappears. The dynamic either stabilizes into mutual respect or it collapses entirely. And that's the part men are afraid of, but shouldn't be. Because a relationship that only survives when you're over-investing, over-explaining, and over-compromising is not a relationship you're winning in. It's a slow drain, and the moment you stop feeding it, it either becomes real or it ends. Both outcomes are improvements. This is what people mean, whether they say it correctly or not, when they talk about frame. It's not dominance, it's not control, it's not playing games. It's simply refusing to let someone else's emotional fluctuations dictate your behavior. It's knowing that if respect disappears, you don't negotiate it back. You step away. Once men truly understand this, women are finished in the sense that manipulation no longer works. Emotional pressure stops being effective. Guilt stops working. Withdrawal stops creating panic. What remains is either genuine connection or nothing at all. And nothing is far better than being controlled. Most men don't lose leverage because they're bad people. They lose it because they give too much, too early, to someone who hasn't earned it yet. They mistake access for connection. They assume interest equals investment. And because of that, they hand over their time, attention, emotional energy, and availability before there's been any real demonstration of reciprocity. This is where things quietly go wrong. When you give heavily at the beginning, you remove all uncertainty. You answer every message quickly. You're always available. You cancel plans when she suddenly wants to see you. You share your feelings early. You explain your intentions clearly. From your perspective, you're being honest and open. From her perspective, you've made yourself predictable. Predictability isn't comforting in early attraction. It's deflating. What most men don't realize is that uncertainty is not the enemy of connection. Premature certainty is. When a woman knows exactly where she stands with you before she's had to invest anything herself, there's no tension left to sustain interest. You've removed the incentive to lean in. She doesn't need to wonder about you, miss you, or reflect on how she feels. You've already done the emotional work for her. This is why men who are intense early often end up confused later. They feel like the energy changed overnight. One week she was engaged, responsive, affectionate. The next week she's distant, vague, less enthusiastic. And the man starts asking himself what he did wrong, when in reality, he did exactly what most men are taught to do. He over-invested before there was balance. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Attraction grows when both people are contributing something of value. When only one person is doing the emotional heavy lifting, the dynamic tilts. The one who gives less holds the power, not because they're cruel, but because they have less to lose. Once a man understands this, his behavior changes naturally. He stops rushing intimacy. He stops front-loading effort. He doesn't punish or withhold, but he also doesn't overextend. He allows space for her to meet him halfway, and if she doesn't, he takes that as information rather than a challenge to try harder. This is where restraint becomes powerful. Restraint isn't coldness, it's self-control. It's knowing that your time and energy are finite and choosing not to pour them into someone who hasn't shown consistency, respect, or effort. It's letting someone earn deeper access rather than assuming they deserve it because you're attracted to them. Most women respond to this instinctively. When a man doesn't flood them with attention, they become more aware of him, not less. They notice his absence. They wonder what he's doing. They feel the space where his validation would normally be, and that space invites investment. It gives them room to participate instead of consume. This is the part that feels counterintuitive to men who've been taught that effort equals virtue. But relationships aren't moral contracts. They're emotional systems, and systems respond to balance, not intentions. Now let's talk about emotional reactions, because this is where many men give away the last bit of leverage they have. When a woman pulls back and a man reacts emotionally, whether that reaction is anger, pleading, over-explaining, or anxious reassurance, he confirms that she has influence over his internal state. From that moment on, she knows she can move him by adjusting her behavior. That knowledge changes how she interacts with him, often without her even realizing it. This is why emotional control matters so much. A man who stays steady when the energy shifts communicates something very specific. He communicates that his sense of self is not dependent on external validation, that he's present by choice, not by need, that he's willing to walk away if the situation no longer aligns with his standards. This doesn't make him threatening. It makes him credible. Credibility is attractive. Most men think emotional control means suppressing feelings. It doesn't. It means not outsourcing your stability to someone else. You can feel disappointment without chasing reassurance. You can feel attraction without abandoning your boundaries. You can feel uncertainty without panicking.
And when a woman realizes that emotional pressure doesn't work on you, the dynamic changes. She either steps up with more clarity and respect, or she disengages. Again, both outcomes are wins. This is the point where many men start to notice something surprising. The less they chase, the more women lean in. The less they explain, the more they're taken seriously. The less they tolerate ambiguity, the clearer people become. That's not manipulation, that's alignment. Everything we've talked about so far collapses without one thing in place: self-respect. Not the kind you talk about, not the kind you post about online, but the kind that quietly governs your decisions when nobody is watching and nothing is guaranteed. Most men think self-respect means confidence. It doesn't. Confidence is how you feel. Self-respect is what you're willing to tolerate, and most men tolerate far more than they should because they're afraid of losing access to a woman they want. This is where men give away the last of their power. Women don't lose respect because a man sets boundaries. They lose respect when he doesn't enforce them, when he says one thing and accepts another, when his words suggest strength, but his behavior shows fear. Here's the part men don't want to hear. You cannot negotiate respect after it's been lost. You can't explain your way back into it. You can't earn it through increased effort. Once you show that you'll stay while being diminished, the dynamic is set. This is why self-respect has to come before connection. A man with self-respect doesn't issue ultimatums. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't argue endlessly about basic treatment. He simply removes himself from situations that don't align with his standards, not dramatically, not angrily, calmly. That calm exit is more powerful than any emotional confrontation. And this is the moment where women are truly finished, in the sense the title means it, not defeated, not punished, but unable to control. Because control only exists when a man is willing to betray himself to keep someone close. Once a man stops doing that, manipulation has nowhere to land. Guilt stops working because he doesn't accept responsibility for emotions that aren't his. Withdrawal stops working because he doesn't chase people who pull away. Threats stop working because he's already comfortable with walking away. What remains is clarity. A woman either engages with him honestly and respectfully, or she exits. There's no fog, no prolonged confusion, no emotional tug-of-war, just alignment or separation. This is why men who truly respect themselves seem unshakable. It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't cling. They don't negotiate their dignity for intimacy. They don't stay where they're tolerated instead of valued. And once a man operates this way, his entire experience with women changes, not because he's trying to dominate, but because he's no longer available to be managed. He chooses instead of chasing. He observes instead of reacting. He invests only where effort is mutual. That's the real transformation. At that point, women sense it immediately, not consciously, not as a checklist, but instinctively. They feel that his attention is optional, not guaranteed, that his presence is intentional, not desperate, that he is there because he wants to be, not because he's afraid to leave. And that changes everything. So when people say, once men know this, all women are finished, what they really mean is this. Once men stop operating from fear, games stop working, illusions collapse, manipulation becomes ineffective. What remains is either genuine connection or nothing at all. And nothing is better than being controlled. If this made sense to you, don't just nod along and move on. Apply it. Watch how people respond when you stop over-explaining. Notice what happens when you don't chase clarity from confusion. Pay attention to how dynamics shift when your self-respect becomes non-negotiable. That's how you know you've understood it. And if you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe. Share it with a man who's still stuck, trying to earn what should be given freely, and leave a comment about which part hit closest to home. Because once you start living this way, you don't go back. The power was never taken from you. You handed it away, and you can stop doing that whenever you decide.